8 Haunted and Cursed Trails in Appalachia. Terrifying true stories revealed from the darkness. The air crackled with dread as the Reynolds family, Jason, Emily, their 2 daughters, Lucy and Sarah, sought refuge among the austere peaks of Maple Hollow. The promise of peace faded behind the shadows that loomed over the fabled 8 trails. Here, whispers of restless spirits and curses ill-fated trailed the family like bitter autumn winds. How could an idyllic postcard town hold such dark secrets? They were drawn into its trap, and the sun setting behind the mountains would only deepen the gloom. It was a cool afternoon when they first set foot on the main trail, excitement mixed with an unsettling tension. As they hiked deeper, a heavy energy thickened the air. Jason's heart raced, pounding against his ribcage like a caged animal desperate for escape. The trees closed in around them, the sunlight filtering through only in fleeting patches, leaving behind looming shadows. Each crunch of dried leaves startled them as a cold breeze brushed against their skin, a reminder that something watched from the dark. Then Lucy's laughter rang out, piercing the tense silence like a bell tolling in the dead of night. "Mom, Dad, look!" she screeched, pointing at nothing. "Willow says we should go that way." The innocent spark in her green eyes twisted Jason's stomach. Willow? Who was Willow? Lucy giggled and pulled ahead, her laughter fading to a ghostly echo. Emily's face went pale. "It's just a game," she whispered, but uncertainty trudged behind her every step. The townsfolk's smiles, once warm and welcoming, felt more like veils hiding suspicion. One evening in the grocery store, Emily felt the chill. "I heard the stories," said Frank, the local historian, his eyes gleaming with something she couldn't quite place. "Those trails, they hold sorrow. Many have vanished. Many weren't innocent." Panic crawled over Emily's skin. "What do you mean?" she asked, dread pooling in her stomach. "What happened to them?" But Frank simply smiled, lips curving like a cat eyeing a mouse. Jason couldn't shake the weight of the stories. In the attic, he uncovered an old journal hidden deep within cobwebs. The frantic scratches danced across the pages, telling tales of a family that lived in their home long ago. How they feared the trails that had claimed their peace, paranoia dripping from their desperate words. Jason shuddered, his skin crawling. They had not come to escape. They had come to expose their family to a dark omen buried long ago. That night, a spine-chilling rustle drew his attention outside. The world felt still and thick, the kind of silence woven with disquiet. With a deep breath, Jason approached the window. Shadows flit just beyond the tree line, a gathering, a ritual of sorts. He squinted, his stomach tightening. The flickering light of candles illuminated faces half hidden, an eerie congregation whispering conspiracies carried by the wind. Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system, and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now, let's continue. He turned to warn Emily, heart pounding, but his words died in his throat. Lucy's room lay open, its silence haunting. Where was she? "Lucy!" he yelled, desperation clawing at his voice. A distant giggle carried through the open window, low and echoing, as if she were already walking the cursed trails, perhaps leading her deeper into the town's darkness, towards something unseen but waiting. Fear settled in his bones. What had they brought their family into? Jason stumbled into Lucy's room, panic flooding his senses. The walls felt like they were closing in, suffocating him in the pit of his stomach. Her toys were strewn about, an untouched innocence contrasting the dread hanging in the air. "Lucy!" He choked on the name, his voice breaking under the weight of fear. He raced down the narrow stairs, the wood creaking ominously under his feet. Dark shadows sprawled across the walls, twisting in unnatural shapes. Emily stood in the hallway, ghost-white and trembling. "Jason, she's gone." The sound of her voice shattered the fragile veneer of calm. "I thought she was just playing, but—" The low giggle echoed again, wrapping around them like a thin fog. Jason's heart raced. What was that? He grabbed Emily's arm, glancing towards the front door. It came from outside. As they stepped onto the porch, the biting cold clasped around them like a warning. The moon hung high, illuminating the path that snaked into the dark woods. Shadows danced among the trees, whispering half-formed secrets. With dread pooling in his gut, Jason whispered, "Do you think she went to the trail?" Emily's eyes glistened with tears. "We need to find her, Jason, now." With tethered breaths, they plunged into the night, the air thick with the scent of damp earth and decay. Each step felt like a descent into the unknown. Their breaths formed quick clouds, visible reminders of their urgency. As they ventured deeper, a chill swept through the branches above. "I swear, I can feel them watching us," Emily muttered, glancing nervously at the gnarled limbs stretching overhead. Each crack of a twig underfoot sounded like a gunshot in the eerie silence. Suddenly, the giggle echoed again, this time closer. It felt like an invitation, a siren's call luring them deeper into the woods. "Lucy!" they shouted in unison. No answer came, but the trees rustled as if in response. Then Jason froze, fear paralyzing him. Something in the darkness shifted, a shadow looming beyond the tree line. It appeared, a figure, small and sprightly. His breath caught in his throat. "Lucy!" he shouted, charging toward. The mysterious shape. The figure turned, and for a breathless moment he saw her, little Lucy with her wild hair and bright eyes. But something was wrong. Her eyes lacked the innocence that had once defined them. They glinted, reflecting the moonlight like shards of ice. "Daddy," she chimed sweetly, "Willow says you should come play." Cold dread seeped into Jason's bones. "Play?" he repeated, his voice a ragged whisper. "Where's your sister?" "Willow wants to show us." The laughter that followed was not Lucy's, but a chorus of chilling, high-pitched voices, echoing from the darkness beyond. Panic surged within. "Don't go with her, Lucy." But it was too late. The giggling grew louder. The answerless wind carried more whispers, blurring the boundary between the living and the unknown. Emily pulled Jason back, breath hitching. "We have to run." As they stumbled backward, the trees seemed to sway, encroaching on them, mocking their desperation. The shadows twisted and writhed, almost as if trying to claw at their retreating figures. Then, just when they thought it couldn't get worse, Lucy giggled again, this time echoing from all directions, the sound wrapping around them like a sinister embrace. "Come join us." And in that moment, a thunderous crack split the silence. A figure lunged from the shadows, a blur of darkness, and the scent of long-buried fear. "What was that?" Jason yelled. "We have to get back," Emily screamed, pulling Jason away from the impending chaos. But what awaited them at the edge of the trees was far more disturbing than they could fathom. The darkness held more than just shadows. Something was weaving in and out of sight, watching them with a hunger they couldn't comprehend. Travelers lost in their own nightmares, they found themselves amid whispers that weren't meant to be heard, and eyes that weren't meant to be seen. What awaited them deeper in the woods? The night was far from over, and the true horrors of Maple Hollow were only beginning to unveil their ghastly truths. Jason's heart thundered in his chest as he stumbled back, the darkness closing in on them. The shadows swayed like sentient beings, and he could almost sense their breath, putrid and ancient. The night air grew thick, suffocating him in dread. "Jason, we can't stay here," Emily shouted, dragging him along. But their path seemed uncertain, a twisting maze that led nowhere. Every turn felt like they were being shepherded deeper into the woods, into a trap set by forces unseen. Then came the laughter again. It was maddening, shrill, and relentless. "Come play with us." The voice twisted around them, once sweet and innocent, now a sinister mockery of Lucy's. "Lucy!" he screamed, desperation threading through each syllable. In response, a light flickered in the distance, a lantern, it seemed, swaying like a ghost in a pinprick of hope. "This way!" Clutching each other tightly, they rushed toward the lantern's glow. But as they approached, their breaths came in ragged gasps. The light pulsed like a heartbeat, warm yet chilling. First, it cast the outline of twisted trees behind them, and then Jason froze as feeble forms emerged from the darkness. Children, their faces obscured by shadows, gathered around the light, their eyes vacant but gleaming in an otherworldly way. He felt ice flood his veins. "Join us," they cooed, each voice overlapping in a dissonant harmony. "We play forever." "No!" Emily shouted, breaking their entrancing spell. "Lucy isn't here. Let her go." She stepped forward, defiant yet trembling. A shift in the air felt palpable, grave, as the children's smiles faded. The shadows around them seemed to pulse, swelling with an unseen energy. "You shouldn't have come," one of the children said, their voice now deeper, older. "Willow doesn't like it when guests refuse to play." Fear wrapped around Jason like a vice. Who is Willow?" The ground trembled beneath their feet, and the trees seemed to bend closer, as if preparing to consume them. "Willow knows things," the child said, "things that make you wish you stayed home." As if to punctuate the threat, a chilling wind picked up, racing through the clearing. The lantern flickered wildly, threatening to snuff out like a dying star. "Run, now!" Jason shouted, grabbing Emily's hand and tearing away from the grotesque gathering. They sprinted blindly through the trees, the branches clawing at their skin like fingers, pulling them back. "Jason, where do we go?" Emily panted, panic clear in her voice. They weren't equipped to navigate the nightmares of Maple Hollow. "Back to the trail," he gasped. The sound of giggling erupted behind them, the dark chorus now swelling into a cacophony of terror. Jason glanced over his shoulder, the children morphing into shadowy figures, their eyes burning deep like embers. It was only a matter of time before they would be caught. Suddenly, the path opened into a small clearing, moonlight spilling over the ground like thick liquid silver. But it felt wrong, too still, too calm. No rustling leaves, no haunting giggles, just an unsettling silence, as though the forest was holding its breath. "Where's Lucy?" Jason's voice cracked, dread pooling in his stomach again. He looked around, searching, desperate for any sign of his daughter. The branches loomed above them like accusing fingers. "We need to keep moving." Then the ground beneath them trembled again, a low growling sound rising through the dirt. Something was awakening, something ancient. Jason felt the vibration pulsate through his bones. "Run!" he yelled again, terror pitching his voice higher. But as they turned to flee, the shadows leapt from the trees and swelled forward like a tidal wave, engulfing them in darkness. In that moment, Jason realized they hadn't just entered the woods. They had stepped into a realm where nightmares flexed their power, an uncanny theater of unspeakable horrors. He and Emily were mere players in a sinister game orchestrated by something insatiable. "Willow," he muttered under his breath.
the name of foreboding echo that hinted at a fate worse than death. And just before he could grasp the gravity
Of their situation, everything went black. What evil had they awakened in Maple Hollow? As Jason's mind spiraled into darkness, one thought pulsed louder than the rest. What if Lucy was no longer their daughter, but part of something far more malevolent? Their escape had just begun, but would it lead them to Lucy or to their own demise? The darkness enveloped Jason and Emily completely, their bodies swallowed by an inky void that pressed in on all sides. There was no sound, no sensation of time passing, just endless dread. Jason squeezed Emily's hand tightly, a last connection to the world they knew, a world far away from Maple Hollow and its horrors. Without warning, a sudden jolt broke through the dark haze. Jason opened his eyes to find himself lying on the forest floor, Emily gasping beside him. They shot up, bewildered and breathless, a thick mist swirling around them like the breath of some lurking beast. Where are we?" Emily stammered, shivering as the chill of the night seeped into her bones. Just keep moving," Jason grunted, pulling her to her feet. They stumbled right into a wall of trees, gnarled branches clawing at their clothes, their skin. Every rustle sent adrenaline racing through Jason's veins, heightening the panic. Smoke? Jason squinted into the fog. No, it was a mist, heavy and unnatural. He glimpsed shapes sliding through it, familiar yet alien. He turned back, grabbing Emily as he felt something brush against his leg. The ground shifted beneath them again, a pulsating rhythm that mirrored the eerie beat of the distant lantern. "Something's watching us," Jason said, wiping sweat from his brow, his heart a war drum in his chest. As if in agreement, the laughter returned, coaxing and malicious. "Come out and play," it sang, echoing around them, rising from a graveyard of echoes, an uninvited guest that wouldn't leave them alone. "Not again!" Jason shouted, and they dashed away from the sound, deeper into the fog. Each breath tasted like rust, thick and metallic. The atmosphere felt charged, as if the very air was alive with anticipation. Then an opening appeared, light cutting through the mist. They stumbled into a small clearing with cragged stones risen like ancient sentinels, casting elongated shadows against the pale light of the moon. In the center, an altar-like structure glistened, decorated with fragments of twisted objects. Bones? Jason leaned closer, panic blooming as he recognized pieces belonging to dolls, shreds of fabric, and was that blood? "What is this place?" Emily whispered, backing away. "That's what they want us to find." Jason's thoughts danced, conjured images of Lucy among the shadows, lost, frightened. The laughter twisted into something darker, a chorus filling the clearing. "She's here! Join us!" Jason spun around, breathless. "Emily, we have to go, now!" But as they turned to flee, the shadows solidified around them, creeping toward the altar, their forms almost tangible. It was like confronting a wave of black ink, pooling and churning with malicious intent. Jason's stomach lurched. "Why won't you play?" came the
"Don't you want to know what Willow knows?" "Enough!" Jason shouted, brandishing fear like a weapon, forcing them forward. They ran, dodging the gnarled stones. But the shadows didn't follow. They withdrew momentarily, only to reassemble into the forms of children, their vacant eyes glistening, faces twisted in the moonlight. Jason's throat tightened as one of them raised a hand, a gnarled finger pointing to a family portrait hanging impossibly in the air, suspended among the towering trees. It was them, Lucy smiling, surrounded by the children he knew he would never want to leave with. The realization struck him like ice shards through his heart. "No, it can't be! This is all wrong!" Then the shadows surged. They howled as they converged, the air thickening with their rage. Play with us forever. Jason and Emily staggered backward, their backs against the gnarled altar. This isn't just a game, he breathed. The weight of despair settled in on him, deeper than the fog that wrapped them. The shadows crept ever closer, their laughter morphing into a shrill chorus of despair. Jason grasped for a plan, but felt hope slip away as he realized there was nowhere left to run. The fog thickened, closing in. "What are we going to do?" Emily cried, terror raw in her voice. Suddenly, the landscape trembled again, and from the shadows an echo returned, deep and foreboding. "Willow will decide." Jason clenched his fists, determined to fight. And as fury ignited within him, he turned to the angered chorus. "No, we will not be your playthings." But was it too late? What awaited them, standing at the brink of Willow's dark domain? Jason and Emily faced the gathering storm of darkness, hearts pounding, whispers promising ruin beginning to echo in their minds. Would they have the strength to confront Willow, or would they fall into despair, lost to the shadows forever? The fog engulfed them so completely that it felt alive, wrapping around their legs like a serpent. Jason squeezed Emily's hand tighter, but even that simple gesture felt like futile resistance against the dread closing in. The laughter twisted and twirled, now seeming to come from all directions, a frenzied cacophony that burrowed into his mind. "Willow, who is she?" Emily's voice trembled, a thread of desperation woven through her tone. "I don't know," Jason admitted, wishing his resolve felt as strong as she needed it to be. "But we have to keep moving." They stumbled back, their eyes searching for something, anything, to anchor them in this disorienting horror. As Jason turned, he caught a glimpse of that family portrait again, Lucy, innocent and laughing. For a fragmented moment, Jason's heart swelled with misplaced nostalgia. But he was yanked back to the present as the shapes around them shivered, restless echoes pressing painfully against his skull. "Do you remember how it feels to play?" A shrill voice cut through the chaos like glass shattering in silence. It coiled through his chest, curling tight enough to almost drown.
Out the madness around him. The children's faces morphed, each smile growing wider, teeth glistening unnaturally in the gloom. "Get away from her!" Jason shouted, raising his arms instinctively, as if he could shield Emily from the encroaching terror. The shadows hesitated, as if taken aback by his bravado. But the moment was fleeting. Their laughter surged, a wave crashing over him, battering away his courage. "Join us, Jason. We just want to play." "Shut up," he barked, fear igniting wild anger within. Desperation clawed at his chest, pushing him forward. "We're not playing this stupid game anymore." He tugged Emily through the clearing, their breath a shared rhythm of fear, feet pounding against the earth. The world around them became an oppressive weight, shadows stretching and contracting, as if the very ground was alive. With every step, Jason sensed the presence of the children, their whispers echoing like a haunting lullaby, promising them a fate worse than death. Then, in the dusky haze, an outline broke the suffocating fog. A figure loomed before them, tall and shadowed, wearing a dress that rippled with darkness, its edges flickering like flames. "Willow, your friend is waiting." The words flowed like honey, sweet but laced with poison. The figure's movements were disjointed, a puppet with tangled strings, and as it drew near, Jason felt the pull of dread tighten around his throat. "No," he hissed under his breath, the primal instinct to protect Emily igniting anew. He shoved her behind him, forcing himself to stand firm. The fear creeping along his spine was almost overwhelming, yet something else ignited, a flicker of instinctive defiance. "Join us," came the chorus once more, playful yet threatening. Shadows danced about them, slipping beneath Jason's feet like water. "Stay back!" he shouted, as his voice cracked, betraying the dread lurking just beneath the surface. "Will you choose, Jason?" The figure raised a hand, and the mist thickened, swirling, obscuring the starlit sky. "Your sister or your life?" The weight of the decision slammed into him. There was no way to save both. He had to choose. The shadows twirled closer, taunting him, every heartbeat a countdown. "Time is running out." Willow's voice now filled the air, seductive and sharp. "What will you sacrifice?" In that moment, everything shifted. The figure stepped back, revealing a path that snaked away into the darkness, shadows retreating like shadows at dawn. It was a doorway of sorts, but it pulsed with the promise of peril. "Emily!" Jason turned, breath coming in ragged gasps. "We have to decide right now. Which way?" She looked between him and the shimmering path, eyes wide with fear and uncertainty. Shadows shifted again, pressing in on them, as if waiting for the moment when their choice would seal their fates. "What if it's a trap?" she whispered, desperation creeping into her voice. Jason felt the pulse of raw terror claw up his throat. The air thickened, and the laughter was solid now, an ocean of dread swirling around them. "Jason, please!" He locked eyes with hers, the choice looming like a storm cloud over them. As the shadows gathered, Jason realized there would be no easy answer. Only the darkness awaited them. But which darkness would they choose? The shadows swirled more violently, as if drawn to the escalating tension between them. Jason felt an icy hand gripping his heart, each thud of his pulse loud against the deafening laughter that surrounded them. Emily's breath quickened, her eyes reflecting a wild mix of dread and hope. "I don't know what's on that path," she whispered, clutching his arm. But can we really trust her? It feels wrong." "She's not just some girl, Em," Jason snapped, retreating into the rage of his fear. "This is about Lucy. They have her. Or maybe they want us to think that. Maybe they want us to chase ghosts." Suddenly, a figure darted across their peripheral vision, quick as a flash. Jason instinctively stepped forward, ready to protect Emily, but he froze. A child, frail and ghostly with hollow cheeks and deep-set eyes, hovered just at the edge of the fog. "Help us!" the child cried, hauntingly sweet yet filled with a chilling echo. "Please, you have to save us." "Stop!" Jason shouted. "What do you mean? Who do you need saving from?" The child flinched, retreating for a moment as if wounded by the rawness of his voice. The laughter intensified, the air fraught with a blend of joy and malice. "Your sister! She's never coming back. But we can play with you." The child's smile widened until it became grotesque, teeth sharp and glistening like daggers in the pale light. "Jason!" Emily quivered, pulling him back as if trying to tie him to reality. "What do we do?" The shadows surged closer, shooting icy fingers towards them, wrapping around their ankles, squeezing like a vice. It felt unreal, like a sick game designed to crush their spirits. Jason fought against the fear clawing at him, desperate for clarity. "We take the path," he declared suddenly, his desperation breeding courage. "If there's even a chance Lucy is out there, we have to try." Without waiting for an answer, he grabbed Emily and sprinted toward the flickering entrance, their feet pounding the ground, breaking into a wild rhythm against the oppressive sound of laughter. Just as they reached the threshold, a horde of children emerged from the fog, more than Jason could count. Each face bore the weight of twisted joy, their eyes dancing with a chaotic light. "Not so fast," they called in unison, voices bubbling with amusement. You can't leave yet. The game has just begun. Jason skidded to a halt, adrenaline crashing into his veins as he let out a ragged breath. He turned, intent on getting Emily through the veil of laughter and terror. But the children moved closer, blocking their escape as they reached for him with hands that felt stone cold and alive. "No! Get away!" he yelled, swatting at the grasping hands with frantic urgency. Emily trembled beside him, her grip tightening until he could barely breathe. And in that moment, the twisted faces of the children morphed into something deeper, an image that chilled him to the bone. They wore the faces of his own nightmares, of friends long lost and family shunned, all twisted into a grim tableau of loss. Tearing at the edges of his sanity, Jason forced himself to look away from their dreadful mocking. "Emily, we can't let them corner us. Move!" They pushed through the throng, the laughter rising in a wicked crescendo, reaching a pitch that made Jason's ears ring. But the instant they crossed into the swirling path before them, everything changed. The laughter dulled, replaced by silence so thick it felt suffocating. The path twisted ever deeper, and the air turned cold and stale, heavy with the scent of damp earth and age. "Where are we?" Emily muttered, stepping cautiously. What if this was a mistake? Jason didn't respond. He was lost in the realization that the laughter still echoed in the distance, but now it felt more malignant, a dark promise that wouldn't let them go so easily. Then, unexpectedly, a loud crash sounded from behind them, rattling the very ground they stood on. Jason spun around, heart racing. "Jason, what if they come after us?" "We can't look back. We have to keep moving," he said, steeling his voice against the dread that swelled in his chest. But as they began moving again, the shadows loomed larger, and Jason felt the oppressive sense of being watched. Something was waiting for them, something that knew them. "Are you sure this path won't lead us deeper into the dark?" Emily whispered, fear trembling in her voice. Before Jason could answer, a chilling echo rang through the stillness, a single children's laughter, shrill and haunting, reverberating. "Welcome to the game." "Jason, what's happening?" her voice cracked. And just then, from the corner of his eye, he saw a flash of white, a face, bare and emotionless, staring at him through the thick fog, longing yet forbidding. His heart raced. "Emily, we have to run." As they fled further into the darkness, Jason couldn't shake the feeling that this was only the beginning. And behind them, a new voice joined the laughter, one unmistakably familiar. "Jason, I'm waiting." The fear surged anew, an insatiable hunger for chaos closing in once again. But who was waiting? And would they ever find Lucy, or something far worse? The deeper they sprinted into the twisted path, the more the atmosphere thickened around them. Shadows seemed to stretch and shift, waiting for the right moment to pounce. A gnawing doubt crept inside Jason's mind. How long could they run? The silence pressed in, and every breath felt like a betrayal, each gasp more desperate. "Jason," Emily's voice broke the thick tension. "What if this is a trap?" He gritted his teeth, scanning the darkness around them. "If it is, then we've got to outsmart them. We can't let them take us." Ahead, the path narrowed, twisted by unseen forces into a maze where even the ground underfoot felt uneven. Each step echoed like a heartbeat, thudding louder as the silence pressed down. Panic threatened to consume him, but he swallowed hard, forcing himself to think. "We need to find a way out," Jason shouted, more to convince himself than her. The fog thickened, swirling with movements that felt alive. "Jason, we can't see anything," Emily cried. The curl of cold breath on the back of Jason's neck sent a chill through him. It felt as though they were being followed, watched, trapped. A flicker of light appeared in the distance, barely more than a shimmer, but it pulled at them like a magnet. "Look!" Jason pointed, hope igniting a fire inside him. We can make it! Together, they sprinted towards the light, hearts pounding as terror clung to their steps. But it flickered, almost mocking in its elusiveness. Just as they were about to reach it, the ground below lurched, and Jason stumbled, barely regaining his balance. His mind raced. Was it a warning? Don't stop, keep going, Emily urged, her voice breaking, tinged with desperation. She was right beside him, but he could feel the weight of despair settling into her lungs. As they drew near, the light flickered with a strange rhythm, and the shadows became more pronounced, drawing closer, weaving together into shapes. Faces, familiar faces twisted in agony, danced in the gloom, mouths moving, but no sound coming forth. Jason's stomach turned as he recognized them. People from his past, afraid and pleading. "Get out! Run! They want you!" surged from their silent lips, the words echoing in his mind. "Jason, look out!" Emily screamed, pointing behind him. Jason turned to find a line of pale hands gripping the edges of the path, pulling themselves closer. It was too late. "Run!" Jason shouted, grabbing Emily's wrist just as the hands lunged forward. They sprinted for the light, fear fueling their escape as the laughing crescendoed again, drowning out their breaths. The light beckoned them with a promise, and they hurled themselves into it, colliding with a barrier that felt like thick fog. The moment they passed through, everything shifted. They were no longer in the path, but standing in what appeared to be an old, decaying room. Walls covered in dark, peeling wallpaper, a chandelier swinging gently overhead, though there was no wind. "What? Where are we?" Emily murmured. But Jason didn't have an answer. The laughter was gone, replaced by an oppressive quiet that made his skin crawl. He felt exposed, as if the walls themselves were inspecting him like a curious predator. Suddenly, a door creaked open, revealing a dimly lit hallway. Flickering candles lined the walls, illuminating the space just enough to hint at what lay ahead. "We should check it out," Jason said, voice tight. They needed answers, even if they were lurking in the depths of darkness. As they stepped toward the hallway, the door slammed shut behind them with a finality that echoed in the pit of Jason's stomach. "Did you hear that?" Emily whispered.
What if we're trapped?
Her voice trembled, but Jason shook his head, refusing to succumb.
It can't be worse than what we just left. We'll find Lucy. We have to.
The further they ventured down the corridor, the more the air grew tense. Distant whispers trailed behind them, words weaving in an unintelligible pattern. One of the doors to their right cracked open, and a chilling draft escaped like a breath. "Come play with us." It was the same child's voice that had beckoned earlier, now draped in a ghastly sweetness. Without thinking, Jason pushed the door wider, curiosity battling against fear. The room inside was filled with twisted dolls, each hanging limply from the ceiling like marionettes, eyes glaring, lifeless yet so full of malice. A chill washed over him as he stepped inside. "Jason!" Emily's voice warned, a barely audible whisper, but it was too late. He felt the ground tremble beneath him, and the laughter returned, louder this time, overwhelming his senses. "Jason, I'm waiting!" The call echoed, familiar yet twisted, freezing him in place. "Is that Lucy?" he gasped, realization dawning. But the darkness suddenly surged, screaming for them, hungry and chaotic. Jason's breath quickened. "Emily, we need to get out now!" A hand shot out, grabbing him from behind as shadows spiraled around him. But not all of them were shadows. And as he turned, the face staring back was not just familiar, it was hauntingly his own. "Welcome to the family," the sinister voice twisted with glee. With hearts pounding in unison, they realized they had wandered too far into their fate. What awaited them next across the threshold of reality? Could they escape their own darkness, or were they destined to join the laughter forever? The darkness roared. Jason felt the chill seep into his bones, a cold grip wrapping around him tighter with every breath. His own face stared back at him, eyes wide and twisted, a morbid reflection of terror that couldn't be real. "Emily!" Jason shouted, fighting the panic welling up inside him. He stumbled back, heart racing as dread poured over him like ice water. The fabric of reality felt thin, stretching and warping around them. There was no escape from this nightmare. "Jason, please!" Emily's voice broke through the chaos. She clutched his arm tightly, her fingers cold and shaking. "We have to get out of here." But where? The corridor was a trap, each door a potential doom ready to unleash ancient horrors. The haunting laughter echoed in the chamber. It was an unholy chorus, a welcome to the damned. Without thinking, Jason gripped Emily's hand and pulled her toward the nearest door, the one still open. "We have to try." Inside was a dimly lit nursery filled with shadows. Rocking chairs creaked in silence. The room was littered with toys, pristine yet stained with an unsettling darkness. At the center, a dusty crib sat empty, but it felt watched, like a sinister entity lurked just out of view. The air shifted, shadows twisted like smoke, growing and retreating in the corners of his vision. "We shouldn't be here," Jason breathed. A soft, sorrowful wail pulled at his heart. "Lucy?" he called out, his voice trembling. "Is that you?" The sound echoed, twisting into mocking laughter. It came from the far corner where old photographs hung, dusty frames shrouded in gloom. Jason stepped closer, drawn by an invisible force, but Emily tugged his arm with desperation. "Jason, don't!" He jerked away, but it was too late. The photos seemed alive, faces contorted in anguish, eyes pleading for freedom. One picture flickered, a child with familiar bright eyes. "Lucy! Jason, come back!" Emily cried, but he couldn't look away. As he reached out a hand, the faces twisted in torment, mouths moving in silent screams, echoing through the empty room. "Get out! It's a trap!" they cried without sound, sending ghostly shivers down his spine. "Jason, please!" Emily's voice broke through him. The door slammed shut behind her, isolating him in this hellish nursery. He turned at the noise, heart racing. The shadows came alive, curling toward him, overwhelming in their numbers. Panic surged as he saw a glimpse of movement from the crib, a swirl of dark fabric peeking out, like something waiting to be reborn. "Get away from her!" he yelled, backing frantically toward Emily, pushing against the door. The darkness thickened. He felt hands, icy fingers against his skin, pulling him closer to the crib. The whispers grew louder now, a siren's call to surrender. "Join us, join us," they chanted, inviting and nightmarish. Jason's heart thundered in his chest as he caught sight of what was within the crib. There was no baby, just a hollow space where darkness pooled and rose, a vortex that promised to swallow him whole. "Stop! Stop!" he shouted, forcing his feet to move back. With a surge of adrenaline, he ran toward Emily, throwing himself against the door. "Emily, open it!" "I can't! It's locked!" Panic laced her voice, her face pale under the dim light. Suddenly the room shook, the walls shuddered as if coming alive. Jason slammed the door with a desperate kick. "We need to find another way out!" But before they could regroup, the shadows converged, loud with laughter, wrapping around them until everything went dark. A soft voice whispered his name. "Jason, come play with us." He squeezed his eyes shut, heart racing. What had they awakened? "Jason!" Emily screamed, but the shadows pulled her away, wrapping her in darkness. "Help me!" "No!" Jason lunged forward, but they were gone, devoured by the endless embrace of the void. With nowhere else to go, he turned to run, searching desperately for any trace of light. Doors lined the hallway, each one calling out to him, each one laced with grim promises. "Don't leave me! Come back!" echoed Lucy's voice, sweet and terrifying. But there were no answers, only the growing whisper of horror. Each corner turned pushed him deeper into a labyrinth of despair. What had become of Emily? Could he even trust that the voice he heard was truly hers? Jason bolted down the hallway, pulse pounding with dread. The realization struck him hard. If he didn't confront whatever was behind this facade, he might never find her or escape. He paused, breathless. Somewhere in the dark lay the heart of this terror. Would he summon enough courage to face it? Or would he too be claimed, swallowed by the laughter that taunted him? And as footsteps echoed behind him, Jason realized he was not alone. What awaited him in the darkness? The sound grew louder, echoing down the hall, each footfall a reminder that he was being hunted. Jason's breath hitched in his throat. He fought the urge to scream, to call out again, but he couldn't risk revealing his presence. Instead, he pressed himself against the cold, unforgiving wall, heart hammering as he strained to hear. Slowly, the footsteps receded, replaced by an unsettling silence that filled the corridor like fog. Jason's instincts screamed at him to run, but every fiber of his being told him to wait, to listen. Was it a trick? Was it real? "Emily," he whispered, feeling foolish for trying to conjure up her name in the dark. The shadows seemed to breathe around him, curling closer, mocking his fear. And then he heard it, a soft giggle, sweet yet twisted, slicing through the silence like a shard of glass. It was coming from behind one of the doors, the light barely illuminating the space between them. Jason crept closer, urging his trembling fingers to touch the door handle. There was something about that giggle, familiar and haunting. "Emily?" he called softly, his heart swelling with desperation. The laughter stopped. A tense silence loomed over him, thick and suffocating. "Jason?" A voice broke through, but it was laced with a sweet, sinister echo that sent chills racing down his spine. Slowly, the door cracked open, shadows spilling out into the hall. He squinted into the dimness. It was a playroom, filled with disarray. Dolls with cracked faces lined the walls, their glassy eyes reflecting an emptiness that echoed the lost innocence of children. In the middle of the room stood a figure, small and delicate. "Lucy?" He stepped forward, fingertips brushing the doorframe, hope digging its sharp claws into his heart. But as she turned, Jason gasped. It wasn't Lucy. The child before him had the same bright eyes, but wore a grin that twisted her features into something grotesque. "Come play with us," she sang, her voice a melody of malice. The room seemed to expand and contract, shadows leaping from corner to corner, as if they were alive. "No," he shouted, heart racing as he backed away. This wasn't Lucy, it was a trap. "Stay," the girl demanded, a whirlwind of shadows swirling behind her, forming grotesque faces that peeked around the door. Jason felt petrified, weighing his options. The shadows were rising, and he had to break free from this nightmare. Just as he turned to run, the child's voice pierced through the chaos. "You can't leave yet! You have to join us! It's fun! We never play alone!" He felt the pull, a gravitational force trying to ensnare him within the darkness. "I won't!" he yelled, taking a deep breath and forcing himself to dart away from the door. Every muscle in his body burned as he sprinted down the corridor, the laughter morphing into anguished screams, swelling and crescendoing behind him. He dashed toward the nearest door, a heavy wooden one that loomed at the end of the hall, pulling with every ounce of strength as he flung himself against it. With a surge of luck, it creaked open, revealing a staircase leading downward. Without a second thought, he plunged into the dark, tumbling down as shadows nipped at his heels. The air grew colder, wrapping around him like one of the ghostly arms he'd felt before, as he hit the bottom and stumbled into a labyrinth of tunnels. The walls whispered, taunting him with fragments of conversation, lost souls trying to lead him astray. "Don't go that way, it's a dead end, follow me." Jason froze. One voice rang clearer than the others. Emily! His heart surged with hope, the sound of her calling him back, drawing him like a moth to a flame. But doubt gnawed at the edges of his conviction. Was that really her? Suddenly, the whisper sharpened, morphing into a cacophony of laughter mixed with tears, echoing off the damp walls, creating an incessant chant that twisted Jason's mind. "Find her, join us, light or dark, the choice is yours." He staggered back, unsure of what to do, swallowed by the weight of indecision. But one thing was certain. He needed to discover who lurked in the depths, and if he had any hope of rescuing Emily, before it was too late. The walls split around him, revealing two paths, one dimly lit, flickering like a dying candle, the other cloaked in absolute darkness. Which path held the truth? His pulse thundering in his ears, he made his choice. But as he stepped forward, a chill swept through him from behind, and he heard laughter again, distant, but far too close. What was waiting for him in the dark depths below? The air was thick with tension as Jason stood at the crossroads of the labyrinth, the hairs on the back of his neck prickling with dread. He felt the weight of the shadows pressing in, their whispers swirling in a twisted dance that amplified his fear. He gritted his teeth. "I have to find Emily," he whispered to himself, the weight of those words cutting through the fog of despair. The flickering light shimmered like a beacon, pulling him closer. He couldn't let the darkness win. Choosing the path of light, he pushed forward, every step echoing with uncertainty. The shadows scurried back as they entered the glow, but he knew better than to let down his guard. Memories of Lucy's laughter haunted
him, chasing him down every twist and turn as he fought against the encroaching gloom. "Come on, I'll find you," he urged softly. The words meant more for himself than for anyone else. He rushed down the flickering hall until it opened into a vast chamber. Dimly lit, the room was adorned with grotesque portraits, faces twisted in agony, their eyes seeming to follow him. Each painting resonated with pain, and he felt the urge to run again. But a soft whimper caught his attention, like a pinprick of desperation in the vast expanse of ghostly silence. He scanned the room, searching for its source. "Emily!" he called, heart pounding. "Jason!" Her voice trembled, tracing through the air like a thread. He clawed through the labyrinthine space, searching for his wife. Then, there, glowing soft in the corner, was Emily, slumped near the base of a massive ancient tree. Broken branches twisted overhead, shadows intertwining. Relief washed over him, and he bolted toward her. "Em!" he shouted, wrapping his arms around her, relief bubbling in his chest. Her eyes were wide, just deep pools of fear. "Jason, it's here. It's watching us," she gasped, gripping his shirt tightly. They turned towards the tree, instinct screaming at them to flee. A figure emerged from the dark, slowly coalescing into shape. A girl with hollow, gleaming eyes and a twisted smile, the embodiment of every wicked whisper they'd heard. Willow. "Did you find what you were looking for?" the voice echoed, sweet yet twisted. "Please, you let her go," Jason spat, trying to project strength, but his voice wavered. "She's part of the family now," Willow said, her grin widening, revealing teeth sharp as daggers. "No, no, you're lying," Jason screamed, panic jolting through him. Emily clutched his arm, the warmth of her touch grounding him for a moment. "I can't let you leave, but I can give you a choice," Willow purred, her gaze intense, beckoning them with a finger glistening like obsidian. "Join us, or stay behind." With every word, the shadows danced, swirling in a sinister rhythm, the laughter humming through the air.
Jason's heart sank. He knew they couldn't yield. "No!" he shouted again, resolve surging through him. "We refuse to play your game." Willow's expression shifted, the playful demeanor flickering into something more malignant. "You think you can choose. You already made your choice by coming here." The shadows coiled closer, dark tendrils wrapping around Emily's legs, pulling her back. "Emily!" Jason reached out, desperation clawing at his throat. "Fight it, Jason! We can do this together!" she yelled, eyes fierce. Fueled by need, Jason surged forward, grabbing onto the shadow gripping her, pulling it away like tearing off a bandage. With a roar, he felt the weight of the shadows recoil, shrieking in horror, anger swelling uncontrollably around them. But even as the darkness shrieked, Willow laughed, a sound that echoed through the chamber like thunder. "You foolish mortal, you cannot win against the shadows. They always take what they desire." But Jason refused to give in. "Not today," he retorted, throwing his head back as he ripped Emily away from the darkness, igniting a glowing flame of courage deep in his core. With their combined strength, they waded through the gathering light, and for the first time, he felt some sense of warmth, the very thing Willow sought to quash. In that moment, the trees creaked and swayed, beaten by gusts of sudden wind. Everything grew still in the silence, and Jason felt the ground pulse beneath them, as if the very roots were echoing their defiance against the dark entity. "Let her go!" he cried, their joined hearts igniting something powerful, able to challenge even the darkest curse. His words created a spark that shimmered through the air, dispelling the shadows gaining control. With one final cry, the shadows faltered, fading like a receding tide, dragging Willow with it, howls of rage trailing as she disappeared back into the abyss. "You cannot escape your fate, Jason." "Maybe not," he huffed, "but we'll fight it till our last breath." Suddenly, the air felt different, light flooding the chamber as if dawn had broken. Jason and Emily found an opening where light poured in, illuminating their path with hope. They ran, hand in hand, breaking through the threshold into freedom. As they emerged from the darkness, the woods around them felt alive, the whispers of the past fading into mere echoes. They gasped for breath, embracing the crisp night air, wrapping each other in an unspoken promise of protection and strength. But deep within, Jason knew they had merely scratched the surface of Maple Hollow's darkness. This wasn't the end. Their battle with the shadows, with Willow, had just begun. As they walked towards the distant light of their home, Jason resolved to uncover the buried sins and forgotten truths shadowing the town once and for all. They would face whatever lay ahead. Together. You need to subscribe now. Click that bell and select all notifications so you don't miss our next gripping story. Smash the like button now, feed the algorithm, and let's spread the word. And flood that comment section with your wild theories and reactions. What do you think will happen next? Don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Your support matters more than you know.